Hey everybody, DeLongshot Signatures here. I have some purchases to share with you guys. I'm going to start off with a Red Wings Autographs for a Cause autograph that I purchased. I forgot to share this in my last TTM video, but we got back, I think he's a defenseman for the team, Simon Edvinsson. I am waiting on one more from the team this year, and I don't think anyone else has been added to the list. Should be open for about 2 more months in case anyone does get added. But this was one I had ordered a while back, and it didn't come with the rest of the group of photos that were signed, so he must have done it at a later date. But glad to add a first round pick to the collection. The other stuff that I got is from a flea market that was about 45 minutes away from where I live. My mom and sister had gone there a while back, and they said they had some cool stuff. And so before my sister left for Florida, she said we should go up there just to see if there was anything I was interested in. And I was able to get some pretty cool stuff. First thing that I am going to share is something that I made a mistake with. So this place was very neatly kept, and there was a lot to look at. It was a bit of a maze, though, kind of hard to navigate through. But a lot of stuff was locked up in cases, so you couldn't really look at something unless you had an employee get it out for you. And while we did, I think we were there for like 3.5 hours, we were trying to look for anything that was signed and anything that like really stood out that would be cool. Everything I got was autographed. So this was behind another item, and the only way I could really tell what it was because of the tag that was on it that had the price. And it said for $15, it was a signed Colts program, and then it said the player on it. And I was like, for $15, that's a heck of a steal. And I could only see like the left side of the autograph. So I didn't really get to look at it until it was almost time to leave. We realized we didn't have much time, so I was like, screw it, for $15, I'll take the gamble. We'll see what it is. It is an authentic signature, but it is not of who I thought it was. But it is a new name in the collection. So this is not a Dwight Freeney signed program. It is a signed Dwight Freeney program. This is actually autographed by former Colts kicker Dean Biasucci, I think. But it said Dwight Freeney on the tag. So for $15, it was worth the gamble. I do not have Dean in the collection, so I did get to add that. But I was really hoping that I added a Pro Football Hall of Famer for really cheap. I did add at least one Pro Football Hall of Famer, maybe 2. Next photo, or next signed item that we have is a picture. There was several 8x10s at this person's booth, and it was one that was open, so you were able to actually look at all the items. And this was the only autographed one in the whole thing, and it was only $1 more, so for $3, I was like, well, if I don't have the name, it's worth getting. So my sister and I used Baseball Reference and figured out who it was, and I did not have his autograph. So for $3, I added Ernie Riles on this signed 8x10. It is personalized to Steve. Don't really care if it's personalized or not. I will take a autograph when I can get it. And for $3, totally worth it. This item was at one booth where I think I ended up getting a total of 4 autographs. And it was on the floor behind a shelf face down. So I just happened to see the name on the back, and I was like, let me see if that's autographed. And picked it up. Sure enough, it was. And for $10, I couldn't remember if I had the dude's autograph or not. So I was like, screw it, I'll just go ahead and grab it. I already have his autograph, but it's a nice signed hero card of Sterling Marlin. Then, that's just the protective sleeve. Then in that same booth, there was this autographed photo. The photo itself is not actually autographed, it's a cut signature, but is framed with a picture. And it is of a former actress, singer, mostly did theater. She did a little bit of TV and film, but she much preferred theater. And so I think it was $7 that I got this for. This is almost knocked over. Mary Martin, who is probably best known for playing Peter Pan in a theater production of Peter Pan. back in like 1959, I think. She was also in The Sound of Music. I don't know that story well enough to know like who her character was and everything, but the autograph looks legit. Everything about it looks good. So for $7, again for a signed frame photo, I'll take it. Then I found a couple of signed baseballs in that same booth. There was this one, and it was pretty easy to identify who it was. He passed away not too long ago, but it's been a minute. This is a former pitcher, Tom Browning. I think this ball was like $20. Won a World Series. I think he was an All-Star in 1990. Never was able to get his autograph through the mail. I don't know how much he signed. Didn't seem like too much. But very cool to add it. Very nice looking baseball. I don't know if it's like, it is a Rawlings, but then like this looks kind of weird. CROLB. Never really seen that before, but maybe I just haven't been looking at baseballs too much. Signed in the sweet spot there, and for $20, it's a pretty good deal. This other one's pretty beat up, and it's not of the greatest person in the world, but I immediately recognized the name, even though I had never seen this person's signature before, mostly because of a urinating tree video. I've mentioned him a few times. Great YouTuber. Does a lot of sports stories, but mainly covers like current sports seasons, mostly the NFL. But he did a story on this person, and so there's a lot to say about them. But I'll try and keep it quick. This is a signed baseball of Marge Schott, who is the former owner of the Cincinnati Reds. She is the second woman to ever own a North American professional sports franchise without inheriting it. So she did purchase them. And then at first, she was pretty endearing to the crowd, would often watch games with people. She was very nice with kids. She had a dog named Shotzi. So if you look over here, there is a signed paw on it, on the baseball. So at first everything seemed all right, and the team was starting to get good, and they won the World Series. Funny enough, with Tom Browning. But behind the scenes, it was pretty chaotic. So she was unhappy with that World Series win because they won in a sweep. She wanted them to take it out to 7 games for revenue, which most owners, that's, not the most inflaming comment ever. A lot of them think the same thing, they just don't really say it out loud. They're there for the revenue, and she kind of wanted more of the same. She was also very controlling of her players, didn't like if they dressed a certain way, had their hair too long, any sort of piercings, no facial hair, very controlling. And she was later discovered to be a massive homophobe and racist, and also kind of tooted the horn of Hitler. So the further you go down the rabbit hole, the worse it gets. But she would use the N-word, and then when confronted about it, she said, oh, it's a Southern expression. She's from Ohio, so that doesn't really work either. She told Raleigh Fingers that if he was ever going to join the Reds, he'd have to shave his mustache. So he did not join the Reds. How dare you? And just a lot of other really terrible things that she said and did. But mostly, once she started making the Hitler comments, Major League Baseball suspended her, I think twice. And then she ended up selling a majority of her shares in the team as her health was failing and everything. But God, she was super cheap and just not a fantastic person. So the reason I bought that is because it's history. And I looked it up. The signature looks good. The paw print and the Oz and the cross that's written next to it. It's hard to see on this ball, but it does look good. Obviously sweet spotted, but not, with the best marker. Then there's like this little thing here. I don't know if it'll focus, but it kind of looks like someone else wrote on it, but I don't know if they were just like testing out a pen or something like that. So, not the greatest person to have an autograph of, but it is sports history. I am a bit of a Reds fan, so I was like, you know what, for like $40, might as well. Then we've got some Hall of Famers here. First one is a basketball Hall of Famer. This is a signed rookie card, Topps Finest, of Chris Bosh. I think this was $25. So it's not really worth much more than that, if it's really even worth that, which was kind of surprising. But I was like, man, that's a basketball name I actually know. And looked him up, and I was like, sure enough, he's in the Hall of Fame. So got that. This one was really, really surprising to me. The booth that we were at had several autographed items, and I was looking in one case that had autographed helmets. We were able to identify a few of them. I think Jonathan Ogden was one. Trevor Lawrence was another. There was a Steve Largent. But there was a couple other ones that we weren't able to figure out. One of them was an Andre Johnson signed Miami helmet. The prices weren't too terrible. I wasn't looking to spend a lot of money, but they were not bad for full-sized helmets that were signed. But my sister was looking at the other case and was trying to let me know. She's like, there's not a lot of autographs here. There's really only like 2 or 3. But there's this guy. And I was like, there's no way there's that guy. Because she said it was $40. I was like, there's no way it's that guy. It's got to be, a card of him that's signed by someone else. Or it's not legit. I don't know. And I looked at it. It's a legit autograph. So for $40, it's not the greatest card in the world. It is a leaf. So it airbrushes all the NFL logos and everything. It's also a Happy Holidays edition. So it's a very obscure kind of looking card. But for $40, I was able to add Pro Football Hall of Fame quarterback Joe Montana. I am stoked with that. Leaf is really trustworthy when it comes to authentic stuff. And, I've seen, not exactly this type of card, but I've seen a lot of their products before, and they do some wacky stuff with their cards. But I was like, I've heard really good things, and I've had, good luck with Leaf cards. So for $40 to add a Pro Football Hall of Famer, I don't care that it's the weirdest looking card of Joe Montana that I've ever seen. It's worth it to me. So very, very happy to add a certified autograph of a Hall of Famer. This next item, I'm going to try and keep this short, but there's stories here, okay? I originally wasn't going to buy it, but the only reason I noticed it was because of the color of the autograph. It's a signed vinyl, and there was nothing else autographed in this person's booth. You guys have been to flea markets. You guys know that mostly it's just like kind of old, rustic, antique furniture, weird collections, like people's dolls and stuff like that. And then you occasionally see some sports stuff. But we were passing by, and this looked like just another old, rustic collection, furniture and knickknacks and everything. Everything was made out of wood. But I saw this album, and it was on its, turned to the side, standing up, and half of it was covered by the stuff that it was sandwiched in between. But I looked, and the signature on the album cover, the color didn't make sense. If it was white, I would have assumed that was just part of the album cover. I've seen that, especially for country artists. If it was black, I might not have been able to see it. It would have been dark spotted pretty well. But it is blue, paint pen blue. So I was like, that's autographed. I need to see who that is. And I looked at it, and they were asking for $150. And I was like, that's pretty steep, even though the name on this is really good. But they had a sign at the booth that said everything is 30% off. So I think that took it down to $105, which is still really pricey for me. I'm very much a cheapskate. But I was like, when am I ever going to have an opportunity to get something like this again? So I went for it. We took it up to the front counter, and they told us, all right, that'll be $150. We were like, should be 30% off. So they looked at their records and everything, and like, oh, sorry, that sale ended in January. We're like, well, the sign is still up, so You guys probably want to take that down. They're like, oh, well, if the sign is still up, we'll have someone take a look. So they called an associate, they looked, and the guy repeated that there was a 30% off sale. So they ended up honoring the discount, even though technically it had expired, which was really, really cool of them. I know they weren't happy about it because that takes, some money out of their pocket, but otherwise I wouldn't have gotten it. But this is an autographed vinyl, and it does have a certificate of authenticity. I don't know if this place is legit or not, but the autograph looks good. Of Kenny Rogers. Looks like the album is Gideon or something like that, but it is signed in a blue paint pen, and he passed away, I think it was all the way back in 2020. But over 100 million albums sold, Country Music Hall of Fame, known for crossing over several different genres in his career. So really cool piece. I don't listen to a lot of country myself, but I keep getting country music autographs. A lot of them have been really cool about signing stuff through the mail or having sales for their stuff. Wish I could get some more metal musicians, but I just haven't seen too many that sign through the mail or do something similar or charge reasonable prices. But very, very cool to add that one. So I think that is all of the stuff that I am pretty sure about in terms of its authenticity. I do have 2 items that I am unsure of. First one was in that booth where I got 4 items, and this was $30. It's another kind of like, it's not exactly framed, but it's kind of framed, and then it's like a signed index card below it. But we saw it and we're like, there's no way that that's $30. But this dude's autograph is not spectacular by any means, and a lot of his authenticated stuff is a very short signature. So like parts of it look okay, but there's other parts that aren't. So I took a risk with this one. But this is supposedly a Lionel Richie autographed picture. So all he ever does is an L for his first name. That looks fine. And then sometimes it's just an R. Sometimes he does have another line afterwards. I don't see the dots too often, but this looks like it's a little bit of a rush signature. But the R is what looks the most off to me. So I'm not really sure. There's not too many comparables that I can find online that resemble this shape or, all of the stuff that he's doing here. But he also has an inconsistent signature. So I don't know if any of you guys have a Lionel Richie autograph to compare this to, or if you see something online, send me a link, please. I would love to see it. So I'm not officially adding this one into my collection until I know for sure that it's legit. It just looks a little odd, and it's so weird too because the other 3 autographs that I got from the booth look good. It was the Tom Browning, the Mary Martin, and the Sterling Marlin. So I feel like I should feel better about this one, but I really don't. So there's that one. And then this one, parts of it look good and parts of it look off, which is what makes it really, really tough. But this was in a case with several other items that looked good from everything that I could see. And this dude doesn't have, he did do some different stuff with his signature over the years. He signed for a long time before he passed. So, there's a lot of source material to work with, but it's just kind of the combination of a couple things that make it seem odd. But for, I think it was like $49, they had a Johnny Unitas autographed index card. So an index card for Johnny Unitas totally makes sense. The J in Johnny looks great. It looks spot on. The Y is a little bit odd. There are a couple of examples where I see he does this, but usually it's a much sharper turn than that. But it could have been a rush signature. Could have been, when he was older, maybe, he was taking a little bit more time to do it. But yeah, I kind of expect something a little bit more like this with the Y. The U, there's a couple of instances where it looks like that, but usually there's a bit more flourish. So that's kind of strange. And then There's a handful of times where he doesn't loop the S back into the T. So I'm not super worried about that fact, but it is just kind of odd that usually whenever I would see like this U version, this would be swooped back. I don't really see too many combinations of both. And then in conjunction with the Y being kind of off, not 100% sure. The best wishes, that's what kind of throws me off. Other than this first B, I guess it's the only B. Other than this B, everything else about it looks spot on. I mean, that T in best is not the easiest thing to fake. That looks really good. The style of the W makes sense for what else he has signed, where he's written best wishes. The B just looks a little bit off, but again, his signature, while mostly consistent, did have some variations over the years. So I don't know how I feel about this one. Let me know what you guys think. If it was one or two inconsistencies, I'd feel pretty good about it, but there's just several of them, especially in the last name, that make me feel off about it. But if it is legit, because there were several other Indianapolis Colts items in there, there was a lot of other signed items that looked good from what I could tell. So I felt pretty good about it when purchasing it, but now that I've been, looking at some authenticated signatures, I've only been able to find a few that match certain elements, but nothing that like really matches overall for it. So for me, the best wishes and the J tell me that it could be legit, or it's a really good fake where they messed up on the last name. I don't know, but that is what I got. I'm going to not take up too much more of your guys' time, but overall, pretty solid haul. Was kind of expensive, but I'm not going to be going back there anytime soon. And I don't have anything else coming up, I think, until April if I go do something. So I'll have a little bit of time to recoup some of my money going to work. But that is it for this one. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. It helps me out a lot. Best luck with your guys' collecting. Take care.